The AMD launch of the 6800 and 6800 XT really didn't go so well last week, but tomorrow we have the launch of the custom third-party AIB cards. I'm going to tell you a full launch guide, where you can find them, how to maximize your chances, what time it's going to be, everything that you need to know to give you a little bit more of a chance. Let's get started. Hey guys, Tiago here. So let's talk about the 6800 and the 6800 XT. Now, the launch of the reference cards last week really did not go so well. Everywhere from retailers like Newegg to Micro Center, even on AMD's own website, people were just extremely frustrated. And in fact, the night before, when we saw people lined up at Micro Center, we started to get a glimpse of how bad that launch was going to be in terms of the availability. People were saying that stores got maybe at most 10 of the 6800, and forget about the 6800 XT. People were looking at possibly 2 to 4 GPUs if they were lucky in certain stores. And of course, the same thing continued online with Newegg. Even Best Buy just showed coming soon. It never really seemed to go in stock on the first day. So it was definitely a very, very troublesome launch. And of course, coupled with the fact that we thought AMD was going to actually be able to live up to some of that hype in terms of delivering on stock, this launch seemed to be actually kind of worse than even the Nvidia 3080 launch, which was pretty historically frustrating for a lot of gamers that were trying to get these GPUs. But of course, now we're going to have one more shot to see if things can improve at all. Let's talk about what's going to be happening tomorrow, and that's going to be on the 25th. Now, be aware that the GPUs that AMD launched last week on the 18th, these were what they call the reference models. Basically, it's the model produced directly by AMD. Tomorrow, the biggest difference is the third-party custom cards produced by companies like Asus and MSI are going to be the ones launching. They basically get the GPU itself, the PCB from AMD, and then they put their own custom coolers on it, their own design. Sometimes they'll overclock it depending what the GPU is. So let's talk about a few important things that you have to know. First, it's going to be sort of the pricing. These custom GPUs most likely are going to cost more than the reference GPUs that we saw last week. For example, the 6800 should MSRP at $579. The 6800 XT should be about $649. But when they're modified by these custom partners, like take something like Asus, for example, you can expect them to have a pretty decent premium. Maybe a $579 GPU will be somewhere in the $600 range, and we're even going to see probably $700 plus 6800 XTs. Now, this happens on the Nvidia side as well. Not everything goes from MSRP. Once in a while, you will certainly have an MSRP card that's like $579, for example, for the 6800, but often this is going to be a card that's really stripped down. If it's a custom card, the cooler may not be as good. It's not really going to be like overclocked or have any RGB on it or anything like that. And of course, we'll see this even on the Nvidia side. For example, EVGA has their Black series of GPUs, which are basically considerably cut down in order to reach a price point. And then of course, to note, EVGA only makes Nvidia cards. That's why you're not going to see EVGA mentioned really with AMD cards. EVGA does have a really awesome queue system that you can sign up for, get an email notification, your spot is held for 8 hours. That's going to be just for Nvidia GPUs, unfortunately, as EVGA is an exclusive partner with Nvidia. So for AMD, you're going to have to look elsewhere. So if you've watched videos on this channel, a lot of the same tips and strategies that I mentioned for previous Nvidia and AMD launches are still going to be applicable towards these custom GPUs. Now, one of the places that unfortunately is not going to be available worldwide or even in the US to many people, that's going to be Micro Center, and I mentioned them because consistently it's a place that on launch day a lot of people actually have a chance at getting these GPUs. For example, on the 3070 launch, they had over 100 to even 200 in some stores stock availability of that GPU. Even people who weren't lined up there early, they were able to get the GPU. So you never know. I mean, I even walked into Micro Center on the Zen 3 release. I was able to pick up a Ryzen 5000 CPU, and I wasn't even there before the store opened. It was just pretty close to opening. So a place like Micro Center, if you have one near you, just keep in mind there are probably people lining up right now. There are going to be people lined up before, especially hoping that the custom third-party GPUs will have more stock and availability. And if you're going to be looking online, at what time should you be looking? Of course, it's going to be November 25th, and the time, at least going from previous estimations and previous launches that have happen with both AMD as well as Nvidia should be around 9 a.m. Eastern USA time. That's 9 a.m. New York time if you want to reference it with wherever you are in the world. So basically, that's the time that they're supposed to launch according to the other launches. But keep in mind, some places don't have them up immediately. Like, for example, a few websites, like even Best Buy and Newegg, have done this in the past. They'll stagger the launch so that way you're not going to see it right at 9 a.m. Of course, they could probably do this because if everything was at the same time, everybody's going to crash the servers. Everybody's going to be looking at that 9 a.m. slot. But if people see that the GPUs aren't available yet, who knows? Maybe they'll put them up at like 9:17 a.m. or something like that. At least it'll catch some people off guard, and it certainly won't load the servers anywhere near as much, and even maybe keep the bots and the scalpers guessing on their toes as well. So that's something to keep in mind. While the time should be 9 a.m., keep an eye out. It could fluctuate a lot, especially if all of these retailers develop different tactics. So it's definitely something that you want to keep in mind. Now, talking about some online retailers, I think the one that if it comes on live in time, unlike it did last week where it's just said coming soon for a while, Best Buy may actually be one of the best places for you to get one of these new GPUs. Now remember, don't try to go in the store because historically they have not had these previous launches in the store. So basically it's going to be online only. But as from the previous launch, they had a really interesting system, I guess, to try to stop like bots and scalpers and at least give people more of a chance. You would see the GPU like sort of add to cart. It would give you a little like timeout window where you actually had to wait, and then the add to cart would come on again, and then basically you would be able to add to cart and check out as quickly as possible, perhaps giving you a little bit more of a chance. And I think what this does, it allows everybody that's actually trying to get a GPU without using a bot or anything like that. It gives people a little bit more of a fair starting point. So I would say Best Buy is certainly going to be one of your better chances because of these systems that they've implemented. Now, Newegg should also have these GPUs, but of course it's going to be a little bit trickier just because Newegg seems to, first of all, give a lot of website errors during these big launches, and every single launch I've had an error trying to get these GPUs. It's definitely been one of the places that it's a little bit tricky, but a lot of people have gotten their GPUs from Newegg, so you just have to, refresh, keep your eye on it. So in the past, Newegg definitely was a little more susceptible to like bots and things like that. So hopefully with this launch, there's a little bit more availability. So hopefully with this launch, they have a little bit better system so the website doesn't crash, and people actually trying to get these GPUs have a fair chance at it. At least those, I believe, should be some of your better options. Amazon occasionally seems to have them too, but a lot of people watch that, so I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the best way to go about it. And let's talk about the actual stock and availability. Now, I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as last week with only like 10 cards per retailer or per store. That seemed to be pretty terrible. I still think this is going to be a very limited launch, especially the 6800 XT. I would assume that you're probably not even going to be able to get one of those very easily. They're going to be very rare, hard to find, even as a custom card. So I think you're going to have a lot better chance at the 6800. Of course, the 6800 XT most likely presents a little bit better value for the performance. I mean, you are paying more, but you do get a considerable amount of performance over the 6800. But having said that, if it's not available and the 6800 is the only modern GPU that you can get your hands on, especially if it's MSRP, it's certainly still a very good GPU. So a little while back, even Asus themselves said that the stock and the quantities available on launch were going to be very limited, and this was the Asus partner in Europe. So we can assume the same is going to be true for the US. I would not really get my expectations up too high that you guys are going to be able to get a GPU right off the bat, but a lot of my viewers have used these same very simple and straightforward tactics and places to go, and they certainly have been able to get these GPUs in the past. It's just something you have to keep an eye on, keep refreshing, and of course you have to get a little bit lucky that the website in question is working at the time that something actually comes in stock and you're able to check out. And of course, all of the other usual tips and tricks will apply. Like if you're checking out on Best Buy and Newegg, make sure you're logged in. You can even use something like Apple Pay on those apps if you have the mobile app. That's going to allow you to check out a lot faster without having to put in any information or without having to wait to authenticate something. So make sure those things are set up, because as soon as you see add to cart, they're not going to hold it for you. So you have to check out faster than the next guy. So make sure you have these little details really down. Make sure you're logged in, and that way you're going to have a better chance at actually acquiring one of these GPUs. And lastly, if you happen to not be able to get these GPUs tomorrow, what are you going to be your next best chances? Well, Nvidia Nvidia certainly has been slowly updating stock in different retailers, so keep an eye on those as well. Sometimes even during the launch, if you go to somewhere like Micro Center or even online, you may see some Nvidia GPUs pop up in order to compete with the AMD releases. So that's going to be something you should keep an eye on. Don't search for this just AMD. You may be able to actually find an Nvidia GPU in stock tomorrow. That's very possible. Maybe retailers are holding them to be able to stock up, so that way when everybody's looking for a GPU and the AMD's ones are sold out, they can go towards an Nvidia one or something like that. But overall, as we know, stock and availability are going to be very limited this year. I think it's going to be well into next year until we see more free-flowing stock, meaning basically if you check out a website or a store, you're going to be able to see it in stock and buy it right away without all of these shenanigans. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Good luck out there GPU hunting. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and let us know down in the comments if you're able to get a GPU. And I'll see you guys on the next video.